Coach Dave March here, and here for another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. As you know, we bring in different founders and entrepreneurs on this podcast to talk about their vision, as my book is called Vision in Action. So we're talking about how different people have brought their visions into action. And today we have David. He is the CEO, founder of Closer, bringing people closer together, which is something, of course, I'm very passionate about. David, can you introduce yourself to the good people here?
Absolutely. And great to be with you, Dave. David Burstein, founder, as Dave mentioned, of Closer. We are a platform for building connection, community, and helping really fight this loneliness epidemic that we are all in the midst of. We launched about 2 years ago and about to expand all across the country later this year.
Yeah. I think it's an important topic right now.
Oh, and I should mention you can find us at becloser.co is
Yeah.
the URL. So
Oh,
for
shit.
anyone looking for us, yeah.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, look, with the introduction of social media and everything, it's supposed to bring us closer. Sometimes I feel like you're just sending content to avoid. Like,
Yeah,
do people even read these things? It's not like an email. I don't know
sure.
I don't know if it was opened. I don't know if it was, replied to.
Yeah,
It's a post.
totally.
And so, what do you think the impact of social media is to loneliness?
I think it's been huge. There's a number of different forces that have driven us to this point, which is truly an epidemic. Vivek Murthy, the former Surgeon General, put out what I thought was a very bold and important Surgeon General's warning, saying that we were in the midst of a loneliness epidemic in this country, and it's really true. The forces, like you mentioned, social media, were certainly at play pre-pandemic, but the pandemic worsened it and exacerbated it. And there have been a whole bunch of other factors that have helped make it worse. But the reality is we are not as connected as we seem and we feel. We have devices and things that allow us to be always connected, but we're actually less connected to each other in the way that we really need to be, with some level of depth and some level of intimacy had in a really long time. So it's a crisis. And technology is not currently handling it better. We have a little bit of a different spin on that, obviously, because we are using technology to help with some of these things. Our belief is that you really need to give people tools that help facilitate people getting together in person. People don't need a AI, friend. They need real
Oh yeah.
friends and real people in person, and people are always going to need and want that. And so everything we do is really designed to say, how do we actually get more people to spend time together? Talking, connecting, having experiences, doing things in each other's homes, doing things out in the world, in their city, exploring their environment with a design that actually increases that likelihood of connection, which could then lead to whatever it wants. I mean, people use the platform, right? Some people end up being best friends, roommates, dates, business partners. I mean, all of the above. That's not for us to decide. We're trying to build that platform that allows everybody to get what they need or what they want.
Yeah. That, I was listening to Simon Sinek. You probably know of him.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I was like
He
listening to
has
his
some great
stuff.
stuff to say on these points, actually.
Oh yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got some great things to say. Um, and I think one of the ones I really liked specifically was the idea of putting all of the onus, all of the like pressure, if you will, on one person, right? That's what he talks about. It's like you put everything on the girlfriend or everything at work. And I think that was a great point that he talks about because there's not really communities anymore. It's like your entire community is like your one girlfriend or boyfriend. It's like entire, like they're everything. It's a lot of pressure to put on one individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that's a huge point he made. And then also another one, when people come to work, it's like they come to work for like, oh, now, work is the like emotional support, financial support, spiritual support, it's health support. It's literally every single thing in one place. And it's like, that's why there's communities. These things are separated in
Totally.
communities. It's not like everything. So what's your stance on that? And how does that affect the loneliness epidemic when there's so much pressure on that?
Well, it is, there is a lot of, it's really hard. I think for people to figure out how to negotiate these kinds of boundaries, right? And for people to figure out how and where to plug in. And there are, I sometimes feel like we've bifurcated people down into too many segments. The guy named Eli Pariser, who I really like, wrote this great book a number of years ago. Called The Filter Bubble. He was the founder of Move On, or one of the founders of MoveOn.org, which was, big progressive super PAC. Um, in the 90s and the 2000s, and he I think this language has been adopted from this book. People, I don't actually know that he gets enough credit, that we're all able to create our own bubble, and if we want to just kind of be inside one vector of a community, we can. And if we wanted, but then it's like, okay, well, how does it intersect with this other community or this group of people, right? And this concept of intersectionality is how can we be members of multiple communities at the same time? I think that's really tricky, and people feel all these different ways that they're part of communities. Frankly, I think I'm sometimes for like getting rid of the word community, because I think it's been so bastardized away from its true meaning. We are meant as a species to be living in community. Very few of us live in community. I think basically it's like, Facebook took the word friend and basically got rid of the true meaning of the word friend. And so basically friends became acquaintances, and then groups of friends, instead of being communities, or instead of being friends, became communities, right? So if you have like 5 friends, you have a community, but that's not what a community is. A community is actually like a group of people who are truly mutually invested in each other, and really interdependent. And then the word community became corporatized, right? And people use it as a word, like a group of people who have a meeting once a week as a community. But really, we hunger as humans for real community, real, tribe, right? If you think about early man, and people lived without with a concept of shared property, shared space, even frankly, shared parentage. Really, really fundamental in our DNA as a species. And by the way, if you look at any other species, that's how all of them live. They live in groups that are basically interdependent, right? And groups of males take on, hunting and gathering responsibilities, or groups of females take on groups of childcare activities. We've gotten very far away from that, almost so much so that I think most people's goal is, how do I amass as much wealth as possible to have as much privacy as possible and not have to deal with anyone else?
Isn't
If
that
I
funny?
do.
Yeah, I have always liked that lyric from I think it was can't remember who it is, a famous rapper or something, but it's like people try to go public just to go private. It's
Right,
like you work all this time, you want to, all right, we're gonna go public, we're gonna get him this money and do all
right,
that just so we can go private again.
right. Exactly.
It's funny how that works.
It sure is. It sure is.
It's almost like paradoxical. I think
Yeah.
that's what a
Yeah.
lot of these things are. It's very paradoxical, and I think that's kind
Yes.
of where we're headed.
Yeah.
You know,
Very much so. I think that's spot on. I mean, it's a weird time.
it is a weird time, and it's just getting weirder. It's just getting weird,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. 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 No, for sure.
So with building communities and all, even like when you consider, yeah, I mean, let's go deeper into that, right? You said that building community is people independent on each other.
Interdependent. Yeah.
Interdependent on each other. Let's go a little deeper into that. How does that, how does that manifest itself? What would need to happen for that to happen? To be interdependent on each other.
Well, I mean, it requires a shared mentality, right? So multiple people need to opt in, and I think the structures and systems that we live in right now don't really naturally allow for that, which is part of the challenge. I mean, this conversation is even interesting. If you're familiar with some of the work of Jonathan Haidt around kids and phones, and this movement to try to create phone-free childhoods, right? Or to
Yeah.
limit the role of phones in people's childhoods because of the very clear and obvious negative impacts of some of these things. But obviously, it's very hard to do that if you're the only kid, right? In a community, in a town, in a friend group who has these rules and can't use your phone. Everyone else is using to phone to communicate, right? So he's actually created these kind of structures that encourage people to say, great, everyone is going to opt in on this together. And I think in that case, and I can say this as a parent, parents really get that. and they understand it, and so they're willing to band, and they understand they need each other to band together. There's a lot of mechanisms in our society. I mean, I actually think that a lot of this starts with thinking about things around property, right? Like it's
Mm,
actually very hard to buy property with a group of people. There's a couple of companies, there's a company called Picasso that does this, but like, if you think about it, one of the greatest ways to create community would be for people to be able to buy, a second home together and create and be able to all spend time there together in different iterations of a group of friends
that's
or
right.
families. Right. I mean, that used to be something that people did more informally, and the costs of doing that weren't so high. Now the costs are so high, and the real estate industry is such a big business. That would be, but it's logistically very complicated to do that. Right. And so we should definitely normalize people buying vacation homes with large groups of friends, right? With 10 or 15 other people makes it obviously more affordable for people, and allows more connectivity. Because if you look at the research, the ways that people form these kind of deep bonds and really start to become interdependent, you have to have frequency of interaction, right? So people call it's referred to sometimes as ritual, right? So people who go on a walk every Monday afternoon, right? Or you have to have long extended periods of continuous time, a vacation, a trip, where you're able to kind of be with people in those kind of mundane moments, because that's actually where the connections that form the interdependence get made. It's not in like the kind of the dinner that we have where we talk about everything and then we leave and we go home. It's in like the small interactions of making someone breakfast or loaning someone your toothbrush, or you know sharing something, or those small human interactions. That's where we really build that connective tissue.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think the real estate idea, the property idea is so big. I mean, another huge factor that is location in terms of the cost of living. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're someone that comes from New York City and you want to have your own house because you want to have more land, more space, so that more people come together, you can't do it in New York City. You gotta move out. You gotta move out because square footage in New York City is prime luxury.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how are we gonna have,
And other
you
things
know,
too. It's like childcare. I mean, other kinds of critical functions, right? Like, sharing a doctor with other people, right? Like if you think about, right, people used to be like a town doctor. And so people were that person was a glue for the community, right? I mean, I'm obviously talking about small places, right? But like those kinds of interactions, we've lost so many of them. And so it's like, okay, so you can try to figure out how to work around some of those things inside our current structure, or you can basically say, well, gee, how do we create um, more structure outside of that, in a way.
sure, yeah, no, 100%, and definitely technology is doing that. I mean, there's also so I mean, this conversation can go in a lot of different ways, right? Because
Yeah.
there's definitely external resources, then there's the internal resources of the human being,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
um, which is like the idea of commitment, of the idea of like, do these people want to commit to these people
Right. Right, right, right.
to do such activity?
Right.
And so it's a very complicated puzzle, really, because
Mhm.
there's all these internal resources that need to be present within the individual,
Right.
and then there's external resources that need to be present so that people can do those things. I think that you know having a place where you can kind of go to and share a toothbrush, if that's the thing, is
Loan
key.
someone your clothes. I mean, those you're right. Like, I mean, just have those kind of interactions. I mean, it's people really. I think the thing that people most misunderstand is that there's that friendship and connection, real deep connection, is built in these smaller moments. I mean, of course, it can be built over sharing some deep, experience, but you can't manufacture those things, right? Yeah, if you both survive a plane crash together, obviously, that's going to be a bonding experience or something like that. But those things are very, very rare. They don't just happen out of the blue. And most of the time, we're not super vulnerable with people. We're not walking around opening ourselves up. to a level of vulnerability that allows those connections to come into us, right? We don't sit down at breakfast and say, oh my gosh, this horrible thing just happened to me with someone we've never met before. But if we did, we might find out that actually that person had a very similar thing happen. And we're unintentionally closing that doorway, right, to more connection and vulnerability.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of kind of the internal resources one has to have. And then see, my point of view on this is about sensitivity. I think that we are as Americans here, for the most part, kind of being desensitized to emotions and to these things
Yes,
because
very much.
right? Like, and so you have to be sensitive to how you feel in order to
Right.
communicate how you feel.
Totally. Totally. Yeah,
Most
you
people
need to
aren't sensitive to how they feel.
yeah, no, no, 1,000%. I think that's absolutely right. That becomes really, really challenging.
That becomes really challenging. It becomes really
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, connecting back to the body and these type of things.
Yes.
Not easy. I mean, it's like it's like, you know, easy to say, but like hard to do.
Yes. Yes. Very hard to do and to create a cultural norm. I mean, even things like going up and talking to people, talking to strangers, and is something that used to be a lot more. I think what's the right word for it? Easy to do, right? We didn't used to be so like people used to, but now like sometimes someone comes up and starts a conversation with you that you don't know, you're like what's right? You start to get a sense of fear in your body, right? Like,
Mhm.
is this person going to ask you something? Are they going to tell me something? Are they a risk to my safety? And that's because of a whole bunch of things that have happened and changed in our culture that have moved us away from that sense of openness and vulnerability, which I think we need.
Totally. Totally. Wow. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think that we might want to go for a second part two on
Absolutely. Happy to do it anytime.
this is a deep conversation going a lot of directions. So I appreciate you jumping on here, David.
Thank you. No, it's a great conversation, an important one. I hope folks listening are able to take something away. And if you want to get more plugged into the work you're doing, you can find us on Instagram, Be Closer, or www.becloser.co, and soon to be available all across the country for finding your people, finding your connection, find people, do things with them, have the kind of experiences that you'd like to have.
Awesome. Well, David, we are going to close off on this episode of the Growth Mindset podcast. But thanks for jumping on here, and thanks everyone for your long attention here. And let's grow our minds together.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.